I'll be making some comments, and then I'll turn it over to Captain Rojas of the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. So I'd like to start out by thanking the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, the Greece Police Department, the New York State Police, the RPD, our Director of Safety and Security, Dave Inzana, our staff, our administrators, our students, the district families, and the community. I understand and realize this has been an extremely difficult time for everyone in our community. The following is a timeline of events. The threat went to local media. The sheriff's office notified the district at 7:15 this morning. Our district was notified at 7:20 while Merton Williams and high school students were already in session. We made the decision to hold elementary students on buses and put Quest Elementary on a delayed start. The threat at that time was not deemed credible by the Monroe County Sheriff's Department, but they decided to deploy K-9 units out of an abundance of caution. Northwood and Village exteriors and interiors were swept by nitrate dogs. Once cleared, students re-entered the building. Quest students were notified of a delayed start time. The building was also swept. Students at Merton Williams and the high school were in a hold-in place. Both buildings were swept by nitrate dogs in both interior and exteriors of the buildings. Class resumed for the remainder of the day. All after-school activities will take place as scheduled. This threat was the same threat submitted to media and law enforcement on Wednesday, with the exception of one additional line threatening to throw Molotov cocktails into district offices. The threat was from the same domain as Wednesday's threat. Throughout the event of this morning, parents, guardians were able to pick up their children from school if they wished to do so. We appreciate their patience, and we brought students from the buildings to reunite with their parents and guardians. I'm saddened that we are again in the receipt of such a threat. It was our intention to hold as normal of a school day as possible, given the lack of credibility in the threat. Had I known this morning the degree of disruption today's events would have caused, I would have closed school. I know there are many feelings and thoughts in the community regarding the threats and the school district's emergency response. To that end, we will be holding a virtual meeting this evening at 6 p.m. for all community members. The purpose of this meeting is to provide information from the day's events and allow community members to submit questions. Information on how to access the virtual meeting and submit questions will be available later this afternoon via Infinite Campus notification and our district website. Before I take any questions, I'd like to introduce Captain Rojas of the Monroe County Sheriff's Department.
I would like to thank the tireless efforts of our K-9 unit, explosive technicians, special operations unit, the Hilton Fire Department, the Rochester Police Department, the Greece Police Department, and our federal partners. Early this morning, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office received information of another threatening email sent to local media claiming explosive devices were placed in the Hilton school buildings. Our hazardous device squad and K-9 units worked with school staff to safely search buildings for these explosive devices. The email appears to be part of a series of automated overseas emails similar to the swatting calls. We are sharing all information with our federal partners. We have not found any connection or local suspects to this threat. If we do, we will track you down. We will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. We are committed to the safety of this community. We are committed to the safety of these children, staff, and this would not be tolerated. If anyone in the community has any information, please call 911. With that being said, do you have any questions for myself or the suit?
Any thoughts about virtual learning since?
At this point in time, we are not looking to move forward with virtual learning. We want to make sure that students are safe. We realize that the best way to have them educated is in person with our teaching staff, and knowing that these were not credible threats, that is not the direction that the district will be moving in.
If threats continue throughout, are you going to continue to evacuate and do that, or is the plan going to change as we move forward?
Well, at this point in time, we're looking to meet with both Monroe County Sheriff's Department and the North Greece Police Department, and also the community, to make sure that we can have a plan moving forward that's sustainable. The real question here is, as you can see today, we attempted to have students continue with their school day and evacuate and sweep the buildings. So the community has very different impressions on how we need to move forward. We felt from the get-go that it was not a viable threat. We felt that students were safe. We felt that staff was safe. But you do have an abundance of caution, making sure that everyone is safe, even though we were 99.99% confident that this once again was a threat that was not viable. So we have to get to a place with our community on what their threshold is as far as keeping students safe. If we know that these threats are not real threats, we need to look at how we can communicate and how we can consider having students coming to school, because it is not a viable option to continue to cancel or to delay school or to put students on buses. And that's the problem with what's happening. So we do need to find who's making these threats and hold them accountable. We're not going to tolerate it. We shouldn't be bullied and intimidated. We should be continuing to be brave and courageous and be logical and thoughtful with how we move forward, because these individuals clearly want this disruption to continue. So we have to work together. As I mentioned in my initial comments, it's not a perfect situation. We would love for it to be a flawless and perfect situation, but it's not. And I am asking the Hilton community to understand that and have patience with that. So our efforts are going to move forward to keep our students and our staff safe, keep our community safe, and make sure we can continue to educate our students in a place that they feel safe and not disrupted.
Captain Rojas, do you think there are human beings behind these emails, or is this some sort of computer program being devised somewhere in the world that is, for some reason, targeting the school district?
I don't believe it's just this school district. I'm not going to comment this and tell you that we have any suspects. We are continuing to investigate this. We're trying to determine where the origin of these emails came. Once we have determined those, and we do find someone who may have, done this heinous act and started sending these, we will prosecute. And we're hoping that we can identify an individual.
I think people are desperate to find who's ever doing this, and they want to make sure that law enforcement is doing everything you can do.
Our criminal investigation section, along with our federal partners and our partner agencies, we're doing everything we can.
Which is what?
We are investigating. We're trying to track down where the origin of the email. We know that it's coming from a server out of what it says Russia, and but that's a difficult task, and they're doing everything they can to complete that task.
Captain Rojas, can you elaborate at all on, I've had parents call me and say that they feel that there's, using their words, a witch hunt going on within the Hilton community, where people are being blamed left and right, and accusations are being placed on individuals that they could have sent the email. Can you offer any elaboration on if it's a local threat or not?
We have not determined that there is a local threat to these emails. If we do determine that, as I stated, we will prosecute that person. We will arrest that person. But there's nothing that leads us to believe this is a local individual or a local group.
And you said a series of automated emails to other schools across the country that have received similar emails?
This seems to be a series of emails being sent to other jurisdictions around the country.
Thank you.
Casey?
Sorry, go ahead.
Casey, so the original email mentions the book. There's all kinds of school districts with this book, and there's all kinds of school districts that have had debates over whether or not the book should be there. Why do you think your school district is getting hit with these emails, these threats?
So I can't prove anything, and I'm not claiming to make any accusations against anyone. But I believe due to the fact that some community members are taking issue with this book, which is their right to take issue with this book, we have a process to challenge this book. But I believe to the fact that people are posting things on social media, that other individuals could be seeing that as a point of contention within our district and then possibly making these threats. Now, I'm not law enforcement, I'm a school superintendent, but with my thought process, I'm thinking that people are posting when meetings are or their different thoughts on the topic, pro or con. I do think that there are people out there who are watching this situation and taking advantage of the division within the community.
Casey, could you say whether you have spoken to any students or groups of LGBTQ students in the district? And if not, what you would say to those kids who I'm sure are more frightened even than other people in the community right now?
Absolutely. I would tell the students of the district that belong to that community that they are welcome here at Hilton Central School District as students within our public schools. We love them as we love all of our students. We are absolutely sorry that the debate around a piece of literature is making them feel that they're not included and welcome. And I know for a fact that our administration, our staff, and our Board of Education will make sure, to the best of our ability, to make sure that they feel safe and welcomed. I understand right now they don't. I can see why there is a consequence because of the piece of literature that is being discussed, that they are not feeling safe at this time. We have worked with our counseling department, with our administration, and with our staff. This morning I sent a message to all of our staff to make sure that they are touching base with our students, our staff, and our family members who are a part of the LGBTQ+ community, to make sure that they feel safe and that if they are being threatened or bullied or intimidated in any way, to let administration know immediately so we can address their concerns and continue to make them feel as safe as possible.
What is the value, in your perspective as an educator, of having books that might be of interest to students with different sexual orientations, different gender identities, things like that?
The value of having those types of pieces of literature are for students who may be just learning who they are as a person. They may be uncomfortable going to a parent. They may be uncomfortable going to someone else. They can privately go to this literature and they can start to identify, hey, I'm feeling this way. Other people feel this way. This is the way that I was born as a human being. Although society at times may look at things differently, this is a support that I have as a student who may be struggling to identify who they are. And this is a way that they can start to be comfortable and be comfortable with who they are and being able to outwardly be who they are as a community member. And I think it's very important to be able to have those resources for all students. We need to remind people that this is public education. That means our doors are open to everyone who lives in our community. And it is extremely important, anything that we can do, whether through the literature selection that is optional in our library, to our curriculum that is developed and presented to our students, that students of all different backgrounds, origins, identifications feel welcome. And it's not just for the Hilton Central School District, it's for all public schools across this nation.
Dr. Thorpe, what is the school's policy regarding controversial books in the library, and how are they selected to be included in that collection?
So in 2015, when this book was selected, we engaged the professionalism of our librarians to do their research. They are the expert in their craft, to identify a selection for our libraries that represent all of our students. We continue to have that process. We currently have a process in place through board policy that if a community member would like to challenge one of those selections, that they submit in writing their concerns about that selection. At that point in time, in our current process, we would include the building principal, the school librarian, 3 community members, and 3 professional staff that are aware and knowledgeable of content. So for example, English language arts teachers to be able to review that. We would have 60 days then to have that group review and then share their recommendation with me as the superintendent. And then I would make the recommendation to the Board of Education for the final vote on whether to keep the literature in the library, modify the accessibility to that literature, or to remove it.
Thank you.
Casey, I suspect that you didn't anticipate a second threat. Since there's been 2, maybe there'll be a third. And I'm wondering if you're preparing what the school district will do in the event that this happens again.
Absolutely. So we debriefed after the first threat. We weren't quite finished with that threat because of how quickly the second threat came. I know that this afternoon we will be meeting with our administration again to debrief. We are moving forward with meeting with both North Greece Police Department. Chief Michael Wood has offered his expertise along with Captain Rojas in the Monroe County Sheriff's Department to look at ways we can improve what happens. I think this is challenging because it often depends on what time the threat comes in. If the threat comes in and we're in transit to school, it's very difficult to turn around and drop young students off to houses that have parents that have gone off to work. When we have students at the secondary level, it looks a little different. This is a very complex issue. It's certainly not as easy as it looks. It's going to be challenging to make sure that we're keeping students safe because once again, although we believe 99.9% of these threats are not founded and are false threats, if that 0.1% is a situation when we do have an issue, we can't do that. We're responsible for everybody's safety. So as far as the way we approach it, there's no magical way to make it better and make sure that everything is perfect, but we're going to continue to work to improve our process. And we appreciate everybody's patience because this is a very complex situation when you're looking to keep close to 5,000 people safe. You don't know the origin of the threat. We don't have anyone currently in custody, and we need to continue to move on with school. So the answer is we really hope and we are praying that we do not have any future threats. But as those threats come in, we will address them in a differentiated approach as they come in, assessing all the different things that are happening with the effort and the focus on keeping people safe. So at times this may be inconvenient if we have future threats, but at the end of the day, the inconvenience is going to be rewarded with making sure that everybody's safe.
Captain, is the FBI involved in the investigation?
I'm not going to comment on any of our federal partners.
But if you're saying there are threats in other schools across the country, do you think this should rise to a federal level?
I'm not going to comment on what our federal partners are going to be investigating on, or what they're not going to be investigating.
Did you say earlier that this exact email or a version of this exact email has been seen going out to other school districts in the last week or so?
Yes, this appears to be a swatting emails that are going out throughout the country.
Do you have a sense of how many districts, for instance, or how many?
I have no numbers on that.
But Captain, the email that came here was very specific. It mentioned the superintendent, it had addresses, it had specific things that were going on. Are you saying these are swatting emails that are then edited to be specific to the communities they're being sent to?
As I stated before, I'm not going to comment on how we're going to be conducting our investigation or what information we have found, but I will say that other districts around the country have received similar emails addressing their specific reasons.
Dr. Sword, how well known was it, I guess, just, public forum-wise, that this book was in the Hilton Library, to Berkeley's point? Could somebody from across the country in another area have known this, and if so, how?
Well, we've received no complaints about that literature selection until a community member addressed the board at public comment. And potentially, there began conversation on different applications of people's different thought process on whether that selection should be in our library or not. So I think at that point in time, we had no knowledge of concern about that selection being in our library until that community member brought it forward. And once again, my expertise is not that of law enforcement or investigating, but it seems to me that once people started to share their opinions on social media, then there began a conversation around whether that book should be in the library or not.
Thank you very much. Be safe.